Bonjour et bienvenue à notre rendez-vous quotidien pour la presse en ligne et en direct sur EBS. Nous sommes aujourd'hui le mardi 11 mai. Permettez-moi de commencer avec une mise à jour à l'agenda de la présidente von der Leyen. Ce soir, elle recevra ici au Berlaymont le Premier ministre de la Roumanie, Florin Citu, pour un dîner de travail. Puis, suite à la réunion de chefs de cabinet d'hier, je suis en mesure de partager avec vous l'agenda du collège de demain et les événements de presse que nous organisons. Demain, donc, le collège adoptera le plan d'action vers une pollution zéro dans l'air, l'eau et les sols. Ce dossier vous sera présenté par le vice-président exécutif Frans Timmermans et le commissaire Virginijus Sinkevičius lors du compte-rendu à l'issue de la réunion du collège. Immédiatement après le compte-rendu, nous aurons un briefing technique off the record sur le même sujet. Le collège discutera aussi une communication qui vise à transformer l'économie bleue de l'Union pour bâtir un avenir durable. Ce point sera adopté par procédure écrite lundi prochain et sera présenté par le commissaire Sinkevičius lors d'une conférence de presse ce même jour. Finally, a General Affairs Council is taking place at the moment. The ministers are preparing the special European Council that will take place on 24 and 25 May. Ministers will also review the state of play of the EU's response to COVID-19, and they will be briefed by the Portuguese presidency on the Conference on the Future of Europe, following the launch event that took place in Strasbourg last weekend. Under any other business, the participants will also discuss enlargement and the bilateral relation with Switzerland. A press conference is foreseen at the end of the meeting, so around 3:30 p.m., and Vice President Maroš Šefčovič will take your questions there. We will ask you to save for him the questions you might have on these issues. That is all for our announcement. We will now take your questions, and I will start with Patricia. Good morning.
Good morning, Eric. Thank you for the floor. I have a couple of questions on the issue of migration. I would like to know if there have been further contacts between Italy and the European Commission on the migration issue in the south of Italy. And I would also like to know if member states have answered the call for solidarity that Commissioner Johansson has done yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Adalbert.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Indeed, yesterday during the press point after her meeting with High Commissioner Grandi, Commissioner Johansson called on other member states to show solidarity with or towards Italy and towards the people who have arrived to Italy over the weekend and more broadly. And now, following this call, so far we have contacts. We have had contacts with several member states. Until now, we haven't received any specific pledge as regards, for example, relocation. However, our contacts with the member states are ongoing, and so are also our direct contacts with the Italian authorities, building on the contacts that Commissioner Johansson took with Minister Lamorgese, as she also explained yesterday. I could also perhaps add that, of course, operational support to Italy continues. There are currently in Italy around 190 staff from Frontex, from 26 member states, including also some from the newly deployed Standing Corps. There are also about 20 Europol guest officers and staff who are supporting the Italian authorities in managing the disembarkation, conducting fingerprinting and other activities, as well as security checks. And on top of that, we also have staff from EASO, from the European Asylum Support Office, who are approximately 130 right now, many deployed in fact in tribunals in order to help with backlog of asylum requests. So, as I said, our contacts are ongoing, and we continue to call on member states to show solidarity in this situation.
Thank you very much, Adalbert. Do we have other questions for Adalbert on the issue of migration today? I see two hands raised. Quentin.
Oui, bonjour Adalbert, bonjour Eric, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Nous t'entendons, vas-y.
Nous t'entendons, vas-y. Super, merci. Non, ce serait pour une question technique pour Adalbert. Donc, l'ancien négociateur du Brexit, Michel Barnier, vient de proposer qu'il était moratoire pour les migrations et pour le Schengen qui irait de 3 à 5 ans. Je viens de vérifier là sur les textes européens, j'ai pas l'impression que ce soit possible. Est-ce que tu pourrais juste donc me confirmer si c'est possible ou pas qu'un État membre décide de faire ce type de moratoire? Merci.
Merci Quentin. Alors évidemment, il ne serait pas très opportun pour la Commission de faire des commentaires sur des éléments de débat politique dans un État membre. Pour ce qui est de cet élément technique, je pense qu'il va falloir que je revienne vers toi après avoir regardé les différents instruments juridiques et après avoir clarifié avec toi exactement de quel genre de mesures on parlerait. Évidemment, le droit européen encadre les questions migratoires d'une manière, en donnant un certain nombre d'obligations aux États membres afin de créer une politique migratoire plus intégrée, plus efficace au niveau européen. Ceci dit, il y a des domaines de politique migratoire qui sont entièrement laissés aux États membres, y compris avec des dispositions des traités. Donc il faudrait que nous regardions ça peut-être ensemble de manière plus détaillée.
Merci. David.
Oui, merci. Oui, merci. David Carretta, Radio Radicale. Et bonjour. Adalbert, j'aurais une question, si je peux, sur la question Italie, Lampedusa et débarquement. Je voulais savoir combien de relocations ont eu lieu depuis l'accord de Malte de 2019 à partir de l'Italie. Si tu peux nous donner un cadre le plus complet possible. Après, j'aurais une question sur le volet externe, je crois. Je ne sais pas si je peux la poser maintenant. C'est toujours au sujet des migrants de la Libye. Je voulais savoir quelle a été jusqu'à maintenant la contribution pour renforcer, disons, la gestion migratoire en Libye, donc le Trust Fund pour l'Afrique, côté libyen, etc. Donc si on peut avoir des éléments factuels sur ces deux questions. Merci.
Merci. Ta première question est effectivement pour Adalbert, la deuxième plutôt pour Anna Pisonero. On verra s'il y a d'autres questions pour Adalbert, mais on reviendra évidemment à ta question après avec Anna. Adalbert.
Merci David. Donc pour ta question concernant les relocalisations à partir de l'Italie, le chiffre que j'ai est le chiffre de 1273 personnes qui ont été transférées à partir de l'Italie vers d'autres États membres depuis 2018. Alors s'il te faut des chiffres avec un peu plus de granularité, nous pourrions regarder cela aussi ensemble avec toi après le midday si tu le souhaites.
Alors, avant de passer à la question pour Anna, y a-t-il d'autres questions pour Adalbert aujourd'hui sur les questions de migration? Ça ne semble pas être le cas, donc merci Adalbert, je passe la parole à Anna.
Merci beaucoup, David, pour la question. Donc, depuis 2014, l'Union européenne a alloué environ 700 millions d'euros pour soutenir la Libye. Ça provient de différents instruments financiers de l'Union européenne, mais tu as mentionné le Trust Fund pour l'Afrique. C'est d'ailleurs la plupart des fonds vient du Emergency Trust Fund, donc à peu près 455 millions en projet en Libye. Peut-être juste pour dire que à peu près la moitié de cet financement a soutenu des activités en fait pour protéger les migrants et les réfugiés et aussi pour faciliter des biens alimentaires et services basiques. Et un peu près entière a soutenu des actions de stabilisation à les communautés, y compris en particulier dans le sud de la Libye. Et aussi, tu sais très bien qu'on aussi soutient des actions pour renforcer les capacités de border management. Et là, tu sais qu'on a un projet de 57,2 millions d'euros. Et bon, je pense qu'il y a... Je ne sais pas si tu voudrais plus de détails là-dessus de ce qui a été ou un petit peu ce qu'on a fait déjà là. Mais tu sais très bien que c'est un projet qui est en train d'être implémenté. C'est pas la bonne mot. Mis en œuvre, pardon. Mis en œuvre avec la coopération, bien sûr, de le gouvernement italien dans cette cas-là.
Merci beaucoup, Anna. David, tu as une question de suivi.
Oui, merci. Anna, je voulais te demander, on a lu sur la presse italienne que le commissaire à l'élargissement apparemment va se rendre en Libye avec le ministre des Affaires étrangères italien. Est-ce que c'est correct et quel serait, si oui, le but de la visite?
Moi, je ne suis pas en mesure de te dire, mais je serais ravie de voir, de checker et voir si je peux revenir vers toi. En tout cas, je pense que les voyages sont annoncés vraiment dans le dernier moment. Donc, je ne suis pas en mesure maintenant de te dire, mais je reviens vers toi si j'ai plus d'infos.
Merci. Y a-t-il d'autres questions sur ce sujet? Ça ne semble pas être le cas, donc nous pouvons passer à d'autres sujets aujourd'hui. Nawab. Merci,
Anna. Yes, thank you, Eric. I have a question on the tragic events that are taking place in Jerusalem and in Gaza, where yesterday about 22 Palestinians were killed, including 9 children, due to the Israeli bombardments. We have seen the statements released by the ES and also yesterday by the EU foreign ministers. But my question is, beyond the statements, what practical steps or what initiatives the EU can take to defuse the current situation? Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you, Nawab, and good afternoon. Indeed, what is going on in Palestinian territories, in the occupied West Bank, in East Jerusalem, and in and around Gaza is really deeply worrying for the European Union, for the member states of the European Union. You heard the foreign ministers speaking out yesterday, and today you've seen also our statements where we said that firing of rockets from Gaza Strip against civilian targets in Israel is totally unacceptable. And we are urging for de-escalation. This is the priority, protecting the civilians and to de-escalate. This is the priority, the immediate de-escalation in order to protect civilian lives. All sides must uphold the international humanitarian law. And when you were asking about what to do and what's the solution, well, I mean, unfortunately, the latest violence and the latest events and the escalation just illustrate how necessary it is to relaunch negotiations on finding a sustainable, peaceful solution to the current situation. So we need to restore, or the political horizon needs to be restored, and leading towards a two-state solution. And this is what all our efforts are aimed at. There is a lot of diplomatic activity ongoing since the troubles started, the recent troubles in Eastern Jerusalem in particular. And the EU is engaged and trying to talk to interlocutors, work with partners on the international scene to make sure that this recent upsurge of violence is stopped urgently and that we move finally towards a negotiated solution to all the problems between the Israeli and Palestinians, and that is through direct negotiations.
Thank you, Peter. Are there other questions for Peter today on international affairs? Please only keep your hand raised if it is the case. I do not see any other questions. Thank you, Peter. We move to Tommaso. Tommaso, you had a question on another issue.
Yes, good afternoon. Tommaso Gallavotti in Kronos, Italy. Thank you for giving me the floor. It's a question on fisheries because in Italy we have a problem with a long-standing problem with Libya, and we've been told that the competence to forge an accord, an agreement with Libya is of the EU. Is the European Commission working on this issue? Because we've had in the last weeks quite a number of episodes, also with shooting by the Libyan Coast Guard against Italian fishermen. Thank you.
Thank you. Vivian, do you have anything to say, or do you... Let's see what Vivian can tell us, or whether we will need to come back to you.
Thanks, Tommaso. I think I'll have to come back to you on the details. I mean, in general, of course, we have the common fisheries policy in place. We agree the total allowable catches, including with our neighboring countries. But let me check the exact situation where we are with the negotiations with Libya, and we'll get back to you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions for Vivian today? Hold on. On fisheries? No, that does not seem to be the case. So let's move on. Are there other issues for us today? That does not seem to be the case. So thank you very much for your attention. We'll see you tomorrow for the college readout. Ah, Lukasz, you were a bit slow in raising your hand. Go ahead.
Yes. I was a little bit too slow. I would like to ask about the COVID certificates.
Sorry, we cannot hear you. Can you start again?
Yes, now you can hear me?
Yeah, please go slowly. You were broken up.
Yes. I would like to ask about the COVID certificates. In United States, after Texas, Florida, Montana, Indiana, and Iowa, also another state, Wyoming, recently banned the use of so-called COVID passports. And the authorities of the state said that the vaccine passport would divide the citizens at the time when there is a need for the unity in fighting with the virus, and the harm, let's say, those who are medically unable to receive the vaccine. So you submitted the proposal, and my question is, whether do you have still, let's say, similar concern to these presented by the US authorities, whether the effect of the introduction of the certificate would affect the, let's say, society in the terms of divisions, in the time when we need unity, and what about the context of the discrimination? So you, of course, submitted the proposal, but my question is whether you still discuss about it and you have still concerns in that matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lukasz. Two things I would say. The first is that, of course, unity is important not just now, but always, and indeed ensuring that people's rights and equality of opportunities are respected is always a fundamental concern. And I think that your question is based on a misunderstanding. There is no such thing as a vaccine passport being proposed by the European Union. What we are proposing is a certificate that simply specifies what is your health status when it comes to the pandemic. And it is whether you have been vaccinated, that is one of the options, but also whether you have taken a test or whether you are immune after having had, having suffered, the virus. So we are absolutely not limiting the certificate to those who have been vaccinated. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that our proposal, I will remind you, pertains to facilitating travel inside the European Union based on these three criteria. So I think that we have taken those considerations into account in devising our proposal, and therefore this proposal basically guarantees that people always have the possibility of traveling across the European Union. You have a follow-up, Lukáš.
Yes, I have a follow-up. Let's just say technical questions. What is the current state when it comes to certificate? I mean, you are in the discussion with the member states because the plan is just to impose it before the holiday, yeah? So until the end of the June. So is the European Union on the way just to be on time with it?
Thank you, Lukáš. We discussed this really at length yesterday, and I would really ask you to go back to all the questions that we answered yesterday on this. You will find all the answers to your questions on where we stand. Just let me remind you that we are now in a phase of political trilogue, so discussions between the Parliament and the Council, and at the technical level we are in a pilot phase with the aim of the capacity for member states to connect the certificates, their own certificates, to the system as of the 1st of June, if I remember well. Okay, are there other questions for us today on the issue of, well, let's move to vaccines and vaccination. Anna.
Question is about Colombia, but I'm having some technical issues, though, so that's why I couldn't ask before to Peter, and I'm still there. So let me know when I can ask about Colombia. Is my question.
Colombia, okay, Anna, we will come back to you. Any other questions related to the COVID situation and the EU's answer in general? Marta.
Has launched this second legal action against the company, asking for finance compensation. I'd like to know if why this is a separate one, and if you are planning on launching different actions like that, and what do you expect from that? Thank you.
We didn't catch the beginning of your question, Marta. I would just ask you all to remember to please wait until the connection has been established before starting to speak, but I think we got the gist of it, so I'll pass the floor to Stefan.
Thank you very much for this question indeed. The first thing I would like to stress here that our objective has never changed. Our objective was the same several months ago, and it's still the same now. This objective is that we want the company AstraZeneca to deliver the doses that we believe are entitled to on the basis of the advanced purchase agreement. Vaccinations are ongoing, member states need the vaccines, and this is the purpose of our actions. These actions are translated into two specific legal proceedings. There was already the proceeding you're aware about of the emergency injunction. In the context of this proceeding, what we asked the judge was to acknowledge the urgency of the situation, the fact that there is a need to have these vaccines. It's important to have these vaccines quickly. In the context of this emergency procedure, we ask the court to acknowledge this urgency and to indeed ensure that we receive delivery of vaccines. The second procedure has the same objective. The second procedure is again about ensuring that we receive the doses we are entitled to, but the second case is a case on which judges the merits, on the substance of the case, where the objective is to check whether there has been a violation of the advanced purchase agreement. As you know, we as a Commission, we believe that AstraZeneca has indeed not respected the terms and conditions of the advanced purchase agreement, and in the context of this process, we ask the court to follow us in our reasoning. I would like to correct what you said in the sense that you refer to financial compensation. We are not here to request financial compensation. We are, as I've said from the beginning, here to claim the delivery of doses. And in order to do that, we request the judge to order the company to do the delivery of doses, and this can happen with the imposing penalties, for instance, the objective of which is to make sure that deliveries are actually delivered. But the objective is not to obtain money or to launch some kind of punitive action. The objective is to obtain doses, and that has been the objective from the beginning and continues to be our objective in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. other questions on these issues? Patrizia.
Eric, sorry. I wanted to ask a question about the COVID certificate, the COVID digital certificate, and in particular, I wanted to ask how did it go, the launch of the technical experimentation which took place yesterday, I think. If you have details on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Johannes.
Patrizia. So indeed, we started yesterday the piloting, the dry run. It takes place over 2 weeks with 19 countries. And it's like always 2 to 3 countries a day. So each test is about half a day. But I cannot now comment every day on how it went yesterday and today. So I think we will gather some experience and maybe then debrief in the next days how the first phase went. I think that makes a little bit more sense, but let me say that the member states and our teams are fully mobilized, and everybody's very committed in this phase, and it's great to see so much interest in this dry run. As I said, 90 member states participating this week and next.
Thank you. So let's move on. Naomi.
Thanks for taking my question. I don't have the option of a camera for some unknown reason today. Just a quick one. It's about antigen tests, if I could. Could you tell me about the thinking on in what circumstances are the use of these less accurate tests or less reliable tests appropriate? So where are they useful as a tool? Is it in free movement? And also, I noticed that in the advice that was sent out today, it says that self-administered antigen tests aren't generally included or recommended. It's those conducted by a trained health professional. Could you tell me the reasoning behind that? Thank you.
Thank you. Stefan.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure I will be able to give much further information on this. You know that we have supported the use of antigen tests, including through joint procurement and so on. As far as the use of the antigen test is concerned in the context of the certificate, I believe this is part of the discussions that are ongoing. But of course, the rapid antigen tests are tests which are important in the context of the better monitoring of the state of play of the vaccine. But in the context of the certificate, I believe that discussions are ongoing on its use. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna.
So I would like to know what is your analysis about the situation in Colombia, because I know last week High Commissioner made a statement asking to ease the tensions and to avoid the excessive use of force, but the situation is still deteriorating, so I would like to know if you have a new comment on it.
Sorry, Anna, we've noted your question. I was looking at the list, didn't pay sufficient attention to the fact that you had already raised your hand on this issue. We'll come back to that question later. Are there other questions for us today on health-related issues? Yanis, is your question on this?
Yes, it is. I hope
Go ahead.
you can hear me.
Yeah.
On the AstraZeneca lawsuit, obviously the initial agreement was about 300 million doses by end June, which is clearly, no longer feasible. So the company is claiming it will have sent 100 million by the end of June. We clearly want more. How much more? I mean, at which point do we want these financial penalties to be put in place? Do we want 20 million more, 40 million more? How much is enough?
Thank you. Stefan.
Thank you very much. Maybe the first thing to stress here is that we do not want to turn the press room into a courtroom. So the arguments, the claims that will be developed in the context of the courtroom, these court proceedings are open to the public, so you are free to follow what will be discussed, argued, and claimed in that context. What we insist on is the delivery of a sufficient number of doses. We believe that the company has not respected the terms and obligations of of the contract, which is a violation which we ask the courts to recognize as such. In any case, in the context of the emergency procedures, we have claimed indeed that we want the court to order the company to deliver 90 million additional doses in addition to the 30 million already delivered in the first quarter. But again, we consider that there is a violation of the terms and conditions of the contract, and we expect the company to live up to its contractual arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne.
Oui, bonjour, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Tout à fait, Anne. Bonjour, vas-y.
Tout à fait, Anne. Bonjour, vas-y. Bonjour. Non, je revenais sur ces poursuites qui ont été lancées sur le fond. On est bien d'accord que la première procédure en référé doit permettre éventuellement de dire quel est le montant de doses que devra livrer AstraZeneca en urgence à l'UE. Enfin, j'imagine que c'est ça. Donc on est sur les doses. Qu'est-ce que vous attendez de cette deuxième procédure? Est-ce que ce sont des dédommagements, pourquoi avoir lancé cette deuxième procédure? Parce qu'on nous dit que c'est la même chose. Donc, si c'est la même chose, pourquoi lancer une deuxième procédure? Enfin, je ne suis pas juriste, je suis navrée pour la question, mais voilà, je voudrais comprendre.
Ben, c'est quand même le rôle d'un journaliste, effectivement, d'essayer de comprendre. Donc, tes questions sont effectivement les bienvenues. On va voir si Stéphane peut clarifier un petit peu plus la différence entre les deux.
Merci beaucoup, Anne. Tu as tout à fait raison. Il faut poser ce genre de questions. Il y a deux procédures différentes. La première procédure, c'est une procédure en référé où nous demandons au juge de reconnaître l'urgence, comme tu l'expliquais, l'urgence du fait que nous avons besoin, les États membres ont besoin de recevoir les vaccins, et donc nous demandons au juge de se prononcer sur cette urgence et de commander en effet la livraison ou de demander la livraison des doses. Mais ça, c'est une procédure en référé. On a toujours aussi besoin d'une procédure sur le fond. Dans cette procédure sur le fond, qu'est-ce qui va se passer? Là, le tribunal va se prononcer sur les droits et obligations des parties, va vérifier qui a raison, est-ce qu'il y a eu en effet une violation ou un non-respect du contrat de préachat dans un niveau de détail que le juge en référé ne pourra pas faire. En référé, la seule question, je simplifie un peu, est la question de savoir est-ce qu'il y a une urgence et si oui, quel nombre de doses doivent être livrées. Mais ça n'empêche qu'il y a une obligation encore de soumettre aux tribunaux évidemment la question de la violation possible du contrat de préachat, et c'est justement cela qui se fait dans cette deuxième procédure. Ça, c'est une procédure qui prend aussi plus de temps, et on n'a pas ce temps pour assurer la livraison des doses, ce qui est la raison pour laquelle nous avons cette procédure en référé. J'espère que ça clarifie un petit peu les choses. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Stéphane, je pense qu'on va rester sur le sujet. Je vois d'autres mains levées. Christian.
Oui, Stéphane, tu m'entends?
Vas-y, oui.
Je n'ai pas de caméra, excuse-moi. Je voudrais juste une petite précision. Tu viens de dire qu'effectivement, nous attendons que le tribunal force AstraZeneca à livrer 90 millions de doses supplémentaires à ce qui a été livré au premier trimestre. Est-ce que vous pensez, la question c'est effectivement, vous attendez ça pour la fin du mois de juin, puisque c'est ça le contrat. Et donc, si je reviens à ce que tu as dit tout à l'heure, si jamais il n'y arrive pas, vous espérez des amendes ou des contraintes financières pour dédommager. Je voudrais faire un peu le lien entre deux corps de phrases que tu as prononcées dans deux interventions différentes. Merci.
Stéphane.
Merci beaucoup, Christian. Il est vrai que dans la procédure de référé, donc, nous demandons, sur base d'urgence, sur base du fait que les États membres ont besoin de vaccins, la livraison de ces 90 millions de doses, des doses qui auraient dû être livrées le premier trimestre. Le premier trimestre, à la fin du premier trimestre, comme tu sais, on aurait dû recevoir 120 millions de doses, on a seulement reçu 30 millions de doses. Mais ça n'empêche que, du point de vue du fond, nous pensons que la société n'a pas respecté les termes et les obligations de notre contrat. C'est pourquoi nous demandons cette livraison. En ce qui concerne les astreintes, comme j'ai dit, le but, ce n'est pas d'obtenir des fonds, le but, c'est d'obtenir la livraison des doses. Et pour ce faire, nous demandons non seulement en référé que le tribunal demande en effet à la société de faire la livraison, mais nous demandons aussi que cette obligation vient avec le paiement d'une astreinte, ce qui veut dire qu'au cas où la société ne respectera pas cette obligation imposée par le tribunal, qu'on peut demander le paiement de ces astreintes. Le but, ce n'est pas d'obtenir des astreintes, le but, c'est d'utiliser les astreintes pour assurer qu'il y a justement la livraison des doses. J'espère que ça clarifie un peu les choses.
Merci Stéphane. Virginie.
Oui, bonjour, vous m'entendez?
Nous t'entendons, vas-y.
Je voudrais revenir sur ces 90 millions de doses parce que vous pensez véritablement que AstraZeneca est en mesure de livrer 80 millions de doses? Je veux dire, s'ils les avaient eues, ils les auraient livrées, j'imagine. Ou vous avez toujours des doutes sur des entourloupes, je sais, vous n'appelez pas ça comme ça, mais des choses bizarres que ferait Astra. Donc, déjà, ça, j'aimerais avoir une éclaircie là-dessus. Et donc, si effectivement, de fait, il est avéré qu'AstraZeneca n'est juste pas en mesure de produire ces doses, donc vous demandez des astreintes, ce que je comprends très bien, puisque voilà, vous y avez droit. Vous pouvez nous dire combien vous demandez par dose ou par million de doses. Enfin, je ne sais pas comment ça marche, mais merci.
Merci. Encore une fois, Virginie, je crois que là, il faut revenir un petit peu aux commentaires que faisait Stéphane au début. Nous ne voulons pas mener les débats ici en salle de presse qui vont avoir lieu devant les juges. Il revient aux avocats qui représentent la commission de présenter les différents arguments et notamment ceux certainement que tu viens d'évoquer sur la capacité d'AstraZeneca de livrer les doses, etc., etc. Je passe malgré tout la parole à Stéphane pour voir s'il a l'un ou l'autre élément d'éclaircissement à apporter. Mais sinon, vraiment, je vous demanderai d'assister ou de suivre, dans la mesure du possible, les débats devant la Cour. Stéphane.
Oui, merci Eric. En effet, comme tu l'as dit, nous invitons les journalistes d'assister aux débats qui auront lieu devant les tribunaux. En ce qui concerne, nous sommes convaincus que nous avons des arguments très solides pour demander ce que nous demandons devant les tribunaux. Nous insistons sur le fait qu'il y a des productions de capacités dans lesquelles nous avons investi nous-mêmes de manière assez substantielle. Il y a plusieurs usines dans l'Union européenne et ailleurs qui permettent à la société de faire la production des doses nécessaires. Et donc, ce sont quelques exemples d'arguments qui sont importants pour nous et qu'on invoque dans le cadre de ces procédures judiciaires. Merci.
Merci, David. Toujours sur le même sujet, David Carretta.
Oui, très rapidement, mais juste pour avoir le cadre complet. Si j'ai bien compris, AstraZeneca pour le deuxième trimestre prévoit 70 millions de doses. C'est bien correct. Donc 100 millions globalement.
Je crois que c'est correct, Stéphane.
C'est ce que la société a annoncé. Mais comme nous avons aussi annoncé ou indiqué, ce n'est évidemment pas le nombre de doses auxquelles nous avons droit sur base du contrat de préachat. Merci.
Merci. Je ne vois plus de questions sur ce sujet et donc je reviens à la question de Anna sur la Colombie.
She said the question already. Indeed, Anna, the European Union, we are continuing to follow the situation in Colombia very closely, and I would just like to recall the appeal which was made by the High Representative last week that there is a strong need for the dialogue. The people in Colombia, after everything what this country went through over the last months and years, they really deserve peace, stability, and certainty. The country is changing a number of challenges, is facing a number of challenges, and these challenges can be tackled only in the inclusive dialogue by all the political actors, political leaders, and including civil society. So there is the need for dialogue, for inclusive dialogue, and that is based on consensus, and the solutions that need to be found based on the dialogue and consensus. So this is what we are encouraging, and we are of course welcoming any steps that go into this direction to find solutions and answers to all the challenges the country is facing nowadays in the inclusive dialogue and based on consensus.
Thank you. Mira, I believe you have a question on the same issue.
Do you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead. Perfect. Hi. I asked you last week, Peter, if you think to send out observation mission to Colombia, as many voices in the European Parliament are requesting. That's the first point. The second point, what are you doing or planning to support this dialogue called by President Duque? And the third question, do you see signs of the voluntad, the will of part of the government of Colombia? Thank you.
Thank you. On the first question about the possible mission, at this stage, the answer from last week still stands. So we are monitoring the situation on the ground very closely, together with our member states, which are present on the ground in Colombia, and together with our international partners. So far, there is no thinking, or there is no need about sending such a mission. On the second issue, well, we are encouraging, of course, all the actors, all the stakeholders in Colombia to engage in those inclusive dialogues, or in those efforts which lead to solutions found in inclusive dialogue and based on solutions. And of course, we are encouraging them doing it. So we have the trust that in the end, Colombia will be able to overcome this current very difficult period exactly based on consensus, in a spirit of inclusive dialogue with all the stakeholders involved, and that concerns both political leaders and the civil society.
Thank you very much, Peter. We'll now close the Foreign Affairs chapter and move to Oliver.
Yes, hi everyone. I have a question on agriculture. There's a news story coming out of Italian media almost a week ago about supposed plans of the European Commission to allow the sort of cutting of wine with water, the sort of extraction of alcohol from wine. I don't know how all the chemical procedures work. Usually my liver does that for me. But basically of creating alcohol-free wine and sort of, diluting it with water and so forth. The Italian Minister of Agriculture seems to be quite miffed, as is, of course, the Association of Italian Wine Growers and so forth and so forth. Can you enlighten us about this thing? Because this seems to be the kind of topic that quickly, might get out of hand as soon as certain corners of the public debate pick it up and maybe get a wrong idea of what's at stake. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to clarify. Balázs.
Thank you. I'm jumping in on behalf of Miriam on this rather important question, and I think it's important to indeed clarify this matter, and I need to correct the narrative to an important extent, I think. So the potential development of de-alcoholized wines is an important market opportunity for the EU wine sector, that's clear. Consumer demand for wine products with a lower alcoholic strength has been increasing significantly in the recent years. In its 2018 Common Agricultural Policy Reform proposal, the Commission proposed to adapt the EU wine legal framework to cover these new and promising products. However, it is important to note that the Commission proposal does not include any reference to water addition. So again, our proposal does not include any reference to adding water to wine. So the proposal that we made is now in the negotiation process as the rest of the CAP reform. And we are, of course, hoping that the co-legislators will endorse this approach for the benefit of the whole EU sector.
Oliver, you have a follow-up question.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for this clarification. So then in your assessment, where does the idea that, adding water, sort of diluting wine and then selling it as whatever, where does that come from? And what in the current setup of rules prevent producers of non-alcoholic wine from producing this stuff. And I have to admit I'm a bit biased because the worst headache I ever got from any wine was from an alcohol-free Belgian fizzy wine, which I'm not gonna advertise any further. Thank you.
As long as it didn't come from an Weissen gespritzten that you had in Vienna last summer, everything is okay. Balázs.
So on the second question, on the legal framework applicable at the moment, I would need to come back to you since this is not my specialty at the moment. And on the first, where the idea comes from, it's
not for us to decide.
Good question that I have no answer to.
If every time a story in the media appeared, we knew exactly where it came from, we would have a much, much easier job, I have to say. Are there any other questions on this issue? I only see one hand raised. We will move to you, Lorenzo.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah, it's about wine and water. Is it possible that the idea of water is in the negotiation, that is something that they are discussing because somebody else proposed it, since it's a negotiation in this moment? And second question, is there not a problem in calling wine something which has no alcohol? I mean, why has the Commission accepted this? Because it looks like we are calling wine something that has nothing to do with wine if there is no alcohol in it. It's for me, it's quite evident. Is it not something wrong at the beginning? Thanks.
Balázs.
Yeah, so 2 points. On the first one, so I can only make comments on behalf of the Commission. So what I can say is that our proposal on this particular issue did not include a reference to adding water to wine. So it doesn't come from the Commission. The Commission is in charge of course, making legislative initiatives, and on this particular issue, our initiative did not include a reference to this very point. Now, on your second point, I think there's an important clarification to be made. So here we are not trying to encourage alcohol-free wine. We are not here to develop that sector, but we are talking about wine with a lower alcoholic strength. So I think it's an important distinction to be made.
Lorenzo, you have a follow-up?
Yes, just to understand. Oh, yeah, I understand the Commission is not at the origin of this proposal, but can you say that the Commission will not accept this proposal, because the Commission can always intervene when there is something which goes against the integrity of a proposal? Can you say something about this? What the Commission thinks? And the fact that you are not at the origin of the proposal doesn't mean that the final result could not contain this proposal. Thanks.
Lorenzo, you know full well that we do not comment on ongoing negotiations. There is a process in the Commission to decide what is the Commission's position on proposed amendments to its proposals, its draft legislative proposals, and it is in that context that we then carry forward the negotiations in the context of the dialogue between the Commission and the Parliament. So we will make no further comment on this at this stage, but I think it's very important to remember that this is not something that comes from the European Commission. Thank you. Are there other questions for us today on other issues? No, that is not the case. So thank you very much, and see you tomorrow at the college readout.